must stop the terror. Now watch this drive.
How do you like my garbage truck? This truck is in honor of Kamala and Joe Biden.
Wakanda forever.
Minnesota!
Please clap.
I know the human being and fish can coexist peacefully.
Rick, I'll tell you what. $10,000? $10,000 bet?
I'm not in the betting business,
but okay.
Spencer Cox is a former telecom executive who always seems like he's auditioning for the title of America's guiltiest white guy.
I'm a Republican. I'm a Democrat. Go Jazz.
Rip City, go Blazers.
Disagreeing better, not disagreeing less, is the answer.
Okay, we are recording and it's live. Welcome to the Pattern Recognition Podcast. I'm very excited for today's guest. We've got Riley Beesley. Riley is with the Utah College Republicans. He's been really busy if you've been paying attention to anything going on in Utah. And so, without any further ado, I'm going to give the floor to him. Riley, nice to meet you, man. Who is Riley Beesley and what got you into Republican politics?
My name is Riley Beesley. I appreciate this opportunity to come on the Pattern Recognition Show. Big Rock, I'm a big fan of yours. Just wanted to get that out there. I'm a junior. I'm a 20-year-old studying political science at the University of Utah. And, my entrance into the political world is one that isn't like many others. I don't come from a family where, my dad or uncle is in the Senate or House. I'm just a regular guy who was apolitical for most of his life and then found himself, as many others do, on a college university. And from that, I had the opportunity and experience to find myself in a classroom with other individuals who just didn't share any of my principles, values, or a similar identity to mine. And with that, it really changed my outlook both on the state of Utah and the nature of our country. When we have somewhere or an institution that is just so left-leaning and so outright negative and in an atmosphere that really is not welcoming to conservatives, it really makes you want to stand on not only your principles and beliefs, but to get you more involved in kind of the political process and learn more about that. And that's exactly what I found myself doing when I got to college. It was really just the amount of other individuals that were not of my shared party or beliefs that got me wanting to get more involved in politics.
Yeah, I don't think that's if you've been paying attention to anything going on politically in Utah, if you've been paying attention to what's going on our campuses, I don't think anything that you just said is going to be that groundbreaking. We'll get into this a little bit later too. You've had a handful of pretty interesting experiences with the left and with how antagonizing they can be both just within the state and on our campuses. So we're going to get into that a little bit later. But just to start, if you can just explain, what is the Utah College Republicans? Where do they operate? What are its goals? What do you guys do specifically as the Utah College Republicans?
Yeah, so starting off just with a little background there, we all know the GOP, the Republican Party, was founded in 1854. Shortly after that, in 1892, we saw our first college Republican chapter at the University of Michigan, I believe, and since then, college Republicans have been all across this country. And prior to me entering college, I had never known of college Republicans. It was a group that I was unfamiliar with, but it was shortly thereafter, my first month here at the University of Utah, I saw them out tabling. A man by the name of Tyler Boyles got me involved. I owe everything that I have, all the experiences I've had with the left and run-ins with them, to him. So for that, I don't know if I thank him or I should be greatly upset. But the Utah College Republicans, we're a group that's focused on being the conservative voice on campus. We believe that America is worth fighting for. We believe that this state and its principles and everything that our founding fathers envisioned for this country needs to be upheld, and it's not being done by the left. So that leaves an opportunity for us to step in and be that voice and uphold those righteous and moral ideals left by our founding fathers. And if it weren't for us, there's nobody coming to save us. We're at a pinnacle moment in our country that we have individuals that hate this country, largely associated and identifying with the left. And if we aren't here, if the college Republicans aren't willing to do the work around not only the state, but this country, if we're not here to fight, we can kiss this country goodbye. Tyler and I were both elected. I'm the vice chairman of the Utah Federation of College Republicans in March. Our work has really only begun, 10-ish months ago? We have another year or so in our term, and I'm looking forward to what we're going to be able to accomplish, not only representing Utah, but more broadly our nationals. We're affiliated with the College Republicans of America, which is the biggest and largest and greatest college Republican organization in the country. And we're really excited to be a standout chapter within that group.
I mean, I don't think anything that you just said would be that controversial maybe 10 years ago, especially in Utah, but things have changed. Things have changed really quickly. Being a Republican in college, being a college Republican is not what it was like maybe 10 years ago. I think the joke is always like, okay, when you're young, you're liberal, and then when you kind of get older and you mature, you become more conservative or Republican or whatever. That's kind of I feel like my parents definitely said that, and my grandparents definitely said that. But I don't think it's ever been, maybe since like the 60s or 70s, maybe since that, it hasn't been that long since it's really been antagonistic to be a conservative on campuses. So in your experience, and especially in your role, what's it like being a Republican on Utah's campuses, especially here at the U?
Yeah, giving you a little brief overview of how the state political campus scene works. The University of Utah is going to be your most liberal campus in the state, followed closely by the likes of Utah State University and, believe it or not, maybe even Brigham Young University. What it's like being an openly conservative on campus is much probably what it was like being openly gay 30, 40 years ago in high school. The hand has completely been switched around. We have a situation now where you are called a fascist or a Nazi or any of these derogatory terms from liberal students on college campuses for having any sort of conservative beliefs. If you're not willing to go along with the pronouns or having the tampons in the bathrooms, which we see in the University of Utah, or just any of the left's recent nonsensical things, you are going to be outed, you're going to be ousted, you're going to have your grades negatively affected. We've seen this many, many times over and over, where if you have any sort of conservative leaning, and it's very well documented, your grades are going to suffer because of that. So you're paying for an institution here that is taxpayer funded, and you're being largely discriminated against for being conservative, for having, what the majority of Americans have as political beliefs. It's a travesty, and really what it's like is it's deterring, I think, a lot of the time for conservatives to be open about their beliefs when there's all these negative connotations or consequences for them doing so, both socially, academically, and financially here. None of us are getting a free ride here to come and pay and get a degree, right? You have to put in the work to get that, and if you have a certain set of political beliefs and you're being poorly treated because of that, what's the motivation to wear a MAGA hat in class or let others know that you're a supporter of, let's say, ICE or even the president? I think everybody, regardless of who the president is, should stand by them and not only that, but love the country. And we see here on college campuses far too much that none of these lefties have an appreciation or any sort of care or love for the country. So if that's one thing that I could change around college campuses in Utah, I would hope that it could be that.
Yeah, and you say that the the culture of the university is definitely left wing. I mean, there was the story that I can't remember when it came out, but there was that student who was suspended, right, for posting the screenshots of the Utah professor who had all these, anti-white, anti-right wing, anti-conservative posts. He just tweeted, or he just put screenshots out of what she had already said, and he was the one that was disciplined for that. So yeah, I mean, tons of other documented examples. There are, I don't think other people have seen the tampons that are on campus and stuff. So the campus culture here at the U, on other campuses across the country and here in Utah as well, it's definitely more left wing, or at least more friendly towards the left wing, I guess you could say. Are college Democrats, would you say, are they as organized as the college GOP? Like, how would you, or is it just the culture is so pervasive that they don't necessarily need to be as organized as you guys are, if that makes sense?
I'll say this. No other student organization is moving like we are across this state, and especially here at the University of Utah, which I'm a student at. The college Democrats are a joke. Not even the left respects them. We see time and time again from some of our college Republican students where they'll have roommates who are often left-leaning, and they don't even consider themselves or want to associate with the college Democrats just because they're a joke organization. They're not organized. They don't do fun things, and they really don't have any place or role here. Unlike the college Republicans, we do great things. We work for many of our elected officials across the state and help out on campaigns. We bring speakers to class. We do more than have a pizza party. So that really differentiates us from the college Democrats, who I think are the worst party on campus. We're the best party on campus, so we have that on them. Talking just briefly on what you brought up, one of our chapter presidents at our University of Utah Asia campus was suspended for exposing anti-white racist tweets from former professor Ashton Avila. What this individual had done was publicly post just quotes from a professor. And we saw the consequences of that. He's an openly conservative student in South Korea studying at the University of Utah satellite campus there. And what we see from him is being expelled. I think it's awful. Not only that, but we could go into examples here where we have students celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk going without any sort of suspension, or let alone just a meeting with any sort of staff to talk about what kind of behavior is acceptable here or not. And, this is something that I think the University of Utah has done a really poor job on. We had students across the state celebrate Charlie Kirk's death. We saw some people get expelled at Utah State University, which I applaud them for doing so. But then you have many, many, many more individuals here at the University of Utah go without consequence. When you have people celebrating someone's death, making jokes about it, or even now that we see in this past week with recent developments, people openly threatening conservative students, I think it's a mockery. And with that, we have a university that almost allows this behavior or encourages this behavior by not doing anything, not making any statements, and never reaching out to any individuals associated with our club, officers, or even myself. So I would hope that the University of Utah actually is able to, I want to say grow a pair, but maybe I shouldn't, but they really need to, because we have conservative students being threatened on campus. We have conservative leaders being expelled for exposing teachers. And that professor that made those tweets did so publicly and was exposed for doing so. She is no longer a professor at the University of Utah. So there was obviously something wrong with her character, because it was only a matter of her being exposed for her to either be fired or resign. We don't know which it is quite yet. We've been inquiring with the university. They're very closed lips. But even then, they haven't been willing to reach out to any of our members, even to the student involved, and tell them why she was fired or had to resign. So that's a question that I would really like to press the University of Utah on, and hopefully we can get an answer. I know that they're usually very quiet towards us and are never willing to share all that much. I hope that they change that stance, because think about this. Had the roles been reversed on any of this, had it been a conservative student saying something racist, or maybe even remembering back to a time maybe when George Floyd or any of these other kind of people who are prominent on the left side, had we mocked an individual for dying like that, what would have been the repercussions for a conservative student? What would the University of Utah done had maybe a conservative professor been posting online anti-whatever racist rhetoric? What would be the consequences to that? So if I can leave that question in your head, I hope I'm able to do so, and I hope that I can call on transparency and accountability from the University of Utah.
That kind of leads into the next question that I wanted to ask you, from just an the culture, from the institution itself, from the leaders in the university. How pervasive would you say is just kind of liberal, far left Democrat ideology, however kind of you want to describe it? How pervasive would you say that is just across the University of Utah, Utah State, BYU, in your experience? Like, how just institutionally, how pervasive is the ideology?
I think it was reading back and thinking back a Forbes study that recently came out here in 2025, where it says that only 11% of professors across this country would label themselves as either conservative-leaning or registered Republican, whereas we see 51% of those same individuals polled labeling themselves as liberal or left-leaning or a Democrat. And, there's about 30% that say they're in the middle somewhere, or moderate or unaffiliated, but I think there's something widely wrong with that. When you have only 11% of all professors in this great country being conservative, where's the diversity of thought there when every single school and university wants to stand on their pedal of diversity and inclusivity and all these other pejoratives that you could throw out there, and you only have 11% of conservative professors, or, as I guess I could say now, a diverse thought or a diverse voice. I think that's something that's institutionally rotten with our universities, and it's not only a Utah issue. We see here in this great state and across the country, in law schools often, the ratio between liberal to conservative professors is almost 30-1, meaning we're going to have a class of lawyers, attorneys, and anybody working in the law profession be largely left-leaning. And if you want to have any sort of rule of law, and you have individuals who are so bought into a system of bias and I would really say an ideology that's anti-American and destructive, we're going to have some serious issues, not only in our justice system, but we're gonna have cases where there's gonna be blatant bias, more so than there already is. We could go on to a whole nother segment if we wanted to talk about that in our justice system. But I think we're setting up ourselves for failure here. We need to have more conservatives at universities teaching. We need more open dialogue and free speech. We're largely losing it. We have a situation down at Utah Valley University, which we saw as a result of September 10th. Our club has been rendered completely unable to do anything. We can't host events. We can't bring speakers. We can't table. We're not allowed to do anything, and it's just policy that they're not able to quote out of a book, but they say is newly developing, or we get sent through bureaucratic hoops that just limit us in our abilities to do anything, when there's one thing after another thing after another thing, which is atypical to what we were doing prior. Or we have just blatant wrongdoing by the university, whereas we've seen them try to charge us thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars for security at events where we're not expecting any known threats or any need for security. We had at Weber State University just recently them quoting us upwards of $15,000 to go outside and host a debate table. They were trying to quote us for 14 police officers and 2 medics. We're just out there giving individual students a microphone to come and talk to us, to let them say whatever they want to. They could come up to the mic and do as they please. We're just giving them that opportunity. And with that, the university is trying to charge us $15,000 or upwards of $15,000. And having 2 medics prepared, I think that really gives an insight in the state of where our universities are at here. Conservatives aren't able to go outside without having to have 14 police officers and 2 medics accompanying them.
Geez, I mean, I don't remember it ever being like that when I was going to college. Just I guess you've kind of laid into this, so you don't have to go too into this question as because you've kind of answered this already. But what would you just say overall, your overall assessment of the political climate on Utah's campuses? Just like, is it, I mean, you already mentioned, like, at least here at the U, there's a, not really much of an incentive to wear a MAGA hat if you're inclined to wear a MAGA hat. There was the video that came out of University of Utah Republicans last week of the student who was motioning with a rifle towards you guys. Just overall assessment, what of the political climate, what would you say that's like and across all of Utah's campuses?
Well, I'll just make this clear. My MAGA hat's staying on. I'm never going to take that off. We're seeing in Utah similar to what we're seeing all across the country, but we're seeing a group that is becoming more radicalized and more willing to do violent acts or, openly have violent rhetoric. We're seeing in a recent report from the Deseret News from Brigham Tonko and the Hinckley Institute, a report showing 51% of Utah Democrats favor socialism favorably, when another 65% of them view individuals like Zoran Mamdani favorably, and his policies. His policies include rent control, state-run grocery stores, free buses. Everyone knows the buses can't be free. How is that going to work? And we're seeing a political climate where we're going outside as conservatives, as I mentioned earlier, offering students an opportunity to come into the microphone and either agree with us, disagree with us, or say whatever they might want to say. And with that, we had an individual by the name of Dean Stewart last week at the University of Utah come up to us. He was only really around our booth for maybe 3 minutes or less, I observed. And in that time, when we're not even really talking about any sensitive or touchy topics, really, he's going out calling us fascists, Nazis, pigs. The slurs we're used to already at this point and unrattled by. But, it's taken a step further when you have an individual who is shouting, "I am going to Kirk you," which if we use our imagination, we all know what that really means, and motion at us with a rifle. The individual was enthusiastically, he did it time over time, point with his fingers a rifle at us and motion with his arms well above his head. This man did so in front of 3 heroic police officers, which we're very grateful they were out there with us. I don't know how idiotic it is to shout at someone, "I'm going to kill you," or "you should die," and then point a rifle at conservatives in front of officers. I don't really know what his thought process was there. But we're seeing across campuses, across Utah, lefties have become so just unaware of any sort of consequence for their actions. They have no accountability because nobody at the institutions, at the universities, do hold them accountable. You can go in a class and say, "I hate Trump," cool. But it crosses a line when you come to a group of Trump supporters and say, "I'm going to Kirk you," and motion at them with a rifle. And that's really the state of the political climate that we're in as a country, and that's what it's like here in Utah. That individual wasn't the only one that came up to the microphone and just simply said, quote, "Kill yourselves." And he wasn't the only individual to call us, as they often do, fascists or Nazis. But he was the only individual that motioned at us with a rifle, which, like I said, that's drawing a line. There's no way that we can overcome that. There's no amount of debate or policy talk or friendly conversation that is going to change the culture on the left to not be as radical and not be as violent and not be as vicious as they are to conservatives. We're seeing through, the likes of AOC, Hakeem Jeffries, Chuck Schumer, these individuals on the left just spew this awful rhetoric after rhetoric after rhetoric that is to hate everything about Trump, to call him a fascist, to label him a Nazi, to punch us in the face, and then this more broadly gets sent and labeled to every single person that is a conservative or right-leaning or is a registered Republican. And the left has just grown such a deep disdain for Trump and Republicans. I don't know how we're going to overcome this, but I hope for the health of our nation that we're able. I hope for the health of our officers. We're seeing what we're seeing with ICE across this country is despicable. These people are acting like animals. We're seeing them going on Sunday in places of worship where Christians are trying to take the sacrament and reflect on their weeks. And we're seeing people like Don Lemon go in there trying to interview, trying to provoke people, calling them just awful names. What are we doing as a country if we're going to allow that? And I hope that if this continues, I hope that we see some drastic action taken by the administration, because we can't have a country like this.
Yeah, thank you. And I pulled up while you were talking the polling that you were referencing with Utah Democrats. So this is published by the Deseret News. I don't know who did the polling, but this is an article. New poll: majority of Utah Democrats have favorable view of socialism, and this is comparing them to nationwide Democrats. So 51% of Utah Democrats favor socialism compared to 48% nationally. They approve the same figure that you mentioned. They approve Zoran Mondami at a higher rate than most national Democrats. They approve 65 compared to 54%. So I don't think that it's anyone who kind of monitors at all or pays attention to what the left wing is doing in Utah. That's not really shocking to any of us, but I think it is. People think of Utah. I think we've been electing Republican presidents for, I think, at the very least since Reagan, but I think even before Reagan. I don't think that they voted for Carter in '76, but we've had Republican governors elected since, I believe, 1984. We've had a Republican supermajority in the Senate and in the legislature, and almost all of our federal delegation has been Republican elected. We've been considered the strongest Republican state, one of the strongest Republican states for a very long time. And so I think when people hear about just a pervasive far left located kind of within Salt Lake City and maybe pockets in Provo, maybe pockets across the state, kind of is surprising to a lot of people. I think some people might have theories to why that is. I think the church definitely plays a big part of that. People who grow up within the church and then, leave it, they just reject anything that is associated with the church. And I think that they associate conservative politics with that. So when they leave, they don't just reject, the church, they reject anything that can be tied with the church. I think that plays a huge part of it. But kind of leading into the next kind of topic or subject I want to just discuss with you, overall, I know you've had a lot of experiences already just in the past year with the far left in Utah. Can you share just real quick your experiences at the Charlie Kirk event at Utah Valley last year in September?
Yeah, that's a great question. September 10th, 2025, we all saw a political assassination. The only difference between me and many others across this country and world is that I was there. I was with Charlie Kirk just moments prior. If you visit my Twitter, Riley, at Riley Beesley, you can see my pinned tweet. It's a picture of myself and Charlie Kirk. And, you know, that day started as any other. Charlie had been at the University of Utah just a year prior, and things went smoothly there. You know, he had great conversation. People were willing to engage in civic dialogue. He talked with potential voters. And the climate on September 10th was widely different. Just at a simple glance, you could tell that the crowd and audience was probably tenfold what it was just a year prior, and that really shows the importance and great work that Charlie was doing in that alone. But the day started off. We were there. We helped set up. We met with Charlie, snapped a few photographs, spoke with him briefly, and then he enters his tent just as he would everywhere else across this country. And he got through one question. He praises the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and our great work that we do through our missionaries. And we have an individual ask him about violence in this country. And he begins, as he always does, cleverly. And he talks about violence. And then we hear a sharp pop, a ring. At first, I didn't even think that it was a gun. I thought that somebody, some goofball had a firework and wanted to disrupt the event. We saw a quick pause. Many people dropped down. And after that, it was just, as I would describe, chaos. You had what I would call a stampede. People were running in every single direction. People are screaming. You'll hear early signs of cries. And at that point in time, nobody really knew what was going on. And then shortly after that, another thing that I had posted on my Twitter, my X, we had leftist Democrat protesters there that were still heckling us after after the fact that everyone knew what had happened. We have individuals that were so deranged that after they know somebody had just been shot, a gunshot had just happened, that they're still heckling conservatives. They were up on the top section of where Charlie Kirk was, and I think that plays into just what we were talking about earlier, where the left has become so desensitized to violence that in a moment of an attack, they are still there, willing and excited almost to heckle and protest conservatives, meaning anything that a conservative does must be protested in their minds. I think that's something that's really wrong in this country. Going back to September 10th, I had only been there a few hours. I had been one of the last few to leave that courtyard area. I never had ran, and I don't know if that what that means about me. Who knows what my survival instincts or skills are at. But at that point in time, nobody knew when it first happened what went down. It was only a few short minutes after that we all know that Charlie had been shot. Many of the reports said that he was rushed off to the hospital, still alive and well. Anybody that says that, I think, is false. He I would assume died immediately, and that's really what it appeared to be. Charlie Kirk, I guess talking about him as a man, he was a Christian, a father, a great guy, and one of the things the left likes to label him as a racist or somebody who's just there to click farm or make liberals mad. But at the end of the day, this guy got killed for never creating policy, for never voting on any bill that affects your life. The only thing that this guy did was do as everyone has the right to do, is grab a microphone and ask you a question. He engaged in civic dialogue, and that was it. That's what got him killed. And that's the state of the political climate that we're in now, where conservatives are being shot or threatened to shot, in my experience, for talking to the left. These people aren't able to stand on their beliefs. They aren't able to stand on their principles. They have no morality. They don't believe in any sort of divine figure aside from what I would maybe say their own pride. And with that, we've got to the state where we're having a guy like Charlie Kirk get assassinated in Utah, where we all watched it, either in my case live or online. And then after that, we see thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people, and it kills me to say this, but they almost worshipped his death. They supported his death. They called for more violence. They asked in the case of when Trump was shot, why did that guy miss, and why did this one? Why was only this one able to do it? To, as they would say, like, complete the mission. And that's really where we're standing now. That's the fight that I'm up against. That's the fight that all members of the Utah Federation of College Republicans are up against. And that's really what it's like being on these campuses. We're seeing two young guys in the state of Utah, one being on September 10th, motion or pull the trigger and shoot and assassinate Charlie Kirk. And now we have, just a week ago on, January 12th, motion and not pull a trigger, but shoot a gun, a pretend one, at conservatives. And this is what the climate is in Utah. This is what the left is actively seeking in Utah. And they're not hiding who they are. And we really need to do more in trusting them in when they say who they are and what they're going to do. We need to believe them because people are being threatened and people are being shot in the case of Charlie Kirk.
Yeah, I think September 10th is definitely one of those things that, at least for me, I know it will be for you, but I know for me and I know for a lot of my friends and a lot of my family, it's one of those things where we know exactly where we were when we learned or when we saw the video. I think one of the main things that I remember from that day and in the days, following the assassination of Charlie, was, a call maybe from a lot of people on both sides, but there was definitely people on the left who were obviously cheering or didn't seem very sympathetic at all. But I think you did see a lot of people on both sides who were like helplessly or maybe naively calling for a type of unification or we should find a way to bring both sides together or at least condemn political violence. I think a lot of people naively thought that was going to happen. I think, one of the pessimists who looked at it and looked at that event and just thought that we would see a lot more of this ramp up. And we've seen it. And kind of next question, I went to the January 8th, the anti-ICE rally down in Salt Lake City. I didn't get nearly as involved as you did, but I saw with my own eyes some of the crazy left-wing lunatics in Salt Lake assembled. I had been to there was another anti-ICE rally in June of 2025. That was in the middle of the summer, so it was a lot bigger. There's way more people. It was at the park where the Salt Lake City City Hall is. But I didn't see I'm sure there probably was some people there, but I think people just wanted to go out and just see what was going on. But I didn't see at any rate of what I saw a week ago or a week and a half ago, communist flags, Antifa flags, anti-Christian flags, people vocally speaking more in favor of violence, against ICE agents, against people who support ICE. That was not nearly as present in June 2025 as it was in January of this year. So, I went just to observe, kind of feel out what the vibe was like, feel out what these, leftists were really saying and what type of people were going out in support of the anti-ICE kind of movement. Can you just speak a little bit about your experience that night? Because I know you kind of had some interesting and kind of scary experiences that night.
Starting off speaking on that, all I'm going to say is the left is more violent than the right. It's so evidently clear that that is the case. January 8th, I see myself going there at the later half when most have already gone. Really, the only remaining people at that point were the real radicals, the Antifa, or maybe I should say alleged Antifa members, just so I don't find myself in any trouble here. But what we have is this organization being labeled through executive order by President Donald J. Trump as a terrorist organization, yet they are still able to get organized, to go out and protest, to assemble. And really what they're trying to do is not change policy or change the minds of individuals. They're out here looking for opportunities to disrupt, to incite violence, or to cause chaos. This is the mission of a group like Antifa. While it didn't break out into chaos on January 8th, had something might have happened that day, who knows what would have happened. In my experience, I went there, I asked a few questions to different individuals, many of which just had large disdain for ICE. None of them used proper language, which being a member of the Church of Jesus Christ, I would have hoped that they might have had better choices of words. But when we have individuals out there, when you're asking every single person their thoughts on federal law agents, and their immediate response is F them, and I'm not going to say the word, but that they used. But how are we going to have any sort of law or law agencies go out and do their job when half of the country hates them, is either saying F them, or even in some cases going out, standing, interfering with them, holding rifles. We're seeing in Minneapolis individuals carrying rifles, which they're allowed to do. But put yourself in the shoes of a law enforcement agent when you're outside trying to do your job, which I'm in very support of. I love those guys. They need to be out here deporting people. And then you have lefties who are organized, or Antifa that is well organized and funded, out here acting like terrorists and holding guns up, parading them around, and interfering with either your investigation or operation. What are we doing? Trump needs to take a harder stance on these guys. I saw it firsthand January 8th when I'm there asking them questions, seeing them. As we were leaving, we have individuals following us, photographing us in their car. All these guys are wearing masks. I won't say they look intimidating, because I know all these guys are softies at heart. But they're stuck in this ideology that has led them to such destructive paths, where we're seeing in other states where as soon as something happens, or as soon as Nick Sorter grabs a camera, they're going out there to steal it or beat him up. Or even in the case recently with Jake Lang, where he's being pulled limb to limb by these individuals. I'm glad that in our state of Utah, while they've protested, nothing like that has happened. But who's to say the next time I'm out there, that's not going to happen to me? All these people at the end of the day seem to have this same radical ideology that turns them to do these things as soon as the mob kind of swings that way. So speaking more on my experience, I had an individual, as one of my buddies had said, total communist loss. And that was a phrase that we had maybe said a few times that day. That's a phrase that I would hope that more people echo and we hear more of, because these individuals do have to lose. But as soon as he says that, we see in another video posted on my X, at Riley Beesley, we see him pull out his hand of his pocket and motion in the back of my head, a finger gun. And again, just like the individual Dean Stewart at the university, they both enthusiastically swing that hand up in the motion as if it's being fired and they're receiving recoil. If we're having, protests where people are, maybe we have some disagreement, sure, we're allowed to have that. But when we have people just saying a simple phrase like total communist loss, you can come to me and say total Republican loss or total GOP loss. Sure, that's cool. I'm not going to pull out my hand from my pocket and motion at the back of your head, finger gun, and act as if I'm receiving recoil from pulling the trigger. But that's exactly what I've experienced twice in the past week and a half here in our humble, great, beautiful state of Utah. So I hope that law enforcement is able to not only do their jobs, but not be intimidated by these guys across Utah or across the country. I hope that the left and Antifa isn't as radical in their protests, that they can do so if they choose to be peaceful. But at the end of the day, like I said earlier, you're drawing a line when you're threatening someone either by motioning a rifle at them or pointing a finger gun at the back of their head. The only difference between this guy not getting arrested and Dean Stewart is he didn't do it in front of 3 police officers, and he's covering his face. So that's not an endorsement for mask wearing, but that individual should have faced consequences for what he did. I'm disappointed that maybe we didn't get a few more different angles of the individual, or maybe, even his face. But when we have people like this that are going to protest, getting all riled up, being organized within their group, and then deciding to do and take actions like that, it's a bit of a turning point in this country, you could say. It's really looking like we can go down this path. We can continue down this path, which I think is deeply destructive, or we can come together, call out those negative actions, and call out bad actors, and try to be a country again. Because what we're doing right now is gonna make us a very poor off country.
Well, it's unsustainable, and it does really feel like something eventually is going to break. Like just talking about Minneapolis, because everybody's kind of got their eyes on Minneapolis. It really does feel like either something's going to be ramped up in one direction, either the right, quote unquote, President Trump is going to send the more ICE agents down there. He's going to send the Marines down there, or the left is they're going to ramp up. They're going to you already got people standing out, essentially threatening to use arms to prevent federal law enforcement from conducting the what they were voted in to do in November 2024. You've touched on Dean Stewart a lot already, so I won't necessarily ask you about him again. But 2 days ago, you did have a separate experience with Nate Blouin. Blouin is a current state senator. He represents part of Salt Lake County. He's running for the new congressional district that was redrawn by Judge Diana Gibson in that redistricting ruling. That's a whole other can of worms. We can maybe touch on it a little bit later. But right now, if kind of all things stay consistent, there's going to be a new congressional district based solely in Salt Lake City. As we've explained before, Salt Lake City is one of the furthest left cities in the entire country. It's kind of alarming, but he's running for that seat. He's got Ben McAdams running against him. He's got a handful of other Democrats running against him. Before we kind of touch on the whole race in general and your thoughts on it, can you just give me a quick summary of your experience with Nate on January, 2 days ago? Yeah, it was on Saturday, right? Yeah, so January 17th. Just background of how you ran into him, what you were doing there, what he was doing there, and the conversation that you had with him.
Yeah, January 17th, I run into Nate Blouin, who I'm going to call out as a wuss. Nate, what are you doing? Come and debate me. Come and debate Kai. You are online posting that you are afraid of 2 kids that are in college, in their 20s. You are a joke, Nate. You have never had a serious job. You live off your wife. You, in the state legislature, have passed 0 bills. You are by far the most radical and left-leaning individual in our state Senate. And who knows, maybe you're going to be soon a representative here in the House, representing Congressional District 1. Going into, and I'll come back to this, my encounter along with Kai's with Nate Blouin, we in Utah are in a battle to preserve our state. Utah needs to be saved. Democrats have come in through their activist judges and are currently gerrymandering Utah. And it's so obvious. People like to point out to Trump in the national scene and say that Republicans are gerrymandering, Republicans are doing this, Trump that, Trump this. What we're seeing here in Utah is Democrats gerrymandering our state. How can you have that 30% of Utah Democrats are registered as Democrat, or 30% of individuals living in the state of Utah are registered as Democrats, over 50% Republican? How are you going to have 13% people have over 25% of the representation? They're already overrepresented in the Senate and House in our state legislature. So you have these individuals that are fighting this battle to do that. We're currently trying to repeal Prop 4, which was law that gave an unelected and unaccountable board of 7 individuals the rights to redraw Utah's congressional maps, which is a privilege enshrined in our state constitution that allows our state legislatures to come together, whether they're Democrat or Republican, to draw our maps. These people, I can either vote out every 2 years if they're in the House, or every 4 years if they're in the Senate, and they're accountable to you and I. What this board does through Prop 4 is give these 7 people the ability to make themselves kings over Utah's maps. So I believe firmly that we need to stop and repeal Prop 4. We need to stop Democrat gerrymandering. We need to impeach Judge Gibson. We need to stop the Democrat political lawfare here in the state of Utah. And we need to root out these activists. They're trying to destroy our state. They're trying to take away yours and my voice in our House. They're trying to take the midterms away from Trump, in which we're going to see these individuals. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a Nate Blouin type, if ever elected, file articles of impeachment against Trump. So this is the battle that we're up against. We are in a battle to preserve Utah, to save Utah, to stop Democrat gerrymandering, and if we fail, Utah is going to be down a wicked path towards turning purple and then blue. This is the playbook that they've deployed in Colorado to take it from a strong conservative state to now a radical left-leaning one that invites abortion, that has individuals that can go out and smoke weed wherever they want. And we got to ask ourselves as Utahns, is that what we want to see on our streets here? Our homeless is already bad. We don't need them out smoking weed or anybody having the opportunity and ability to have an abortion in our state. We need to think about what our values are, think about who we are and what we believe and what we need to fight for. And we need to fight against Prop 4. We need to repeal it. I encourage everybody to find the time to sign our initiative. All it takes is your signature and name, and that's it. It takes less than a minute or two, and you can save Utah. Speaking on my encounter and experience with Nate Blouin, we were at a GOP signing event hosted by Brad Bonham and the Utah Republican Party. At a venue in Sandy, where who knows why Nate was there, with his intentions to get content, to make a campaign ad, or just to rile up a crowd. But as I was driving in, he had already been there, and I got out of my car and I was like, if Nate Blouin's here, maybe I should go talk to him, right? We've had some encounters in the past, never any good ones. He's not the most pleasant guy to talk to, and I know if you ever are familiar with Nate Blouin and what his beliefs are, there's some major disagreements between him and I. But Kai Schwimmer and myself go up to Nate and ask him if he wants to sign our initiative, which he politely declines. And then I get into the serious question and ask him, Nate, why do you like boys, little boys to be specific? And this really catches him off guard. He calls it creepy. And Kai, in that moment, lays into him. He's calling us creepy for asking him a question when he's the one out here tweeting on a little boy's post of him doing some drag dance, which I don't agree with. And he's saying, this kid's got moves. Is that the line of phrasing that a normal person does, or is that someone that is deeply, deeply rotten in the mind. And I'm going to go with the latter there. I'm going to say that Nate Blouin is a disgusting individual for ever tweeting that. It's still up on his page. If you go to @NateForUtah, I'll give him a little shout out there on X. And if you search in the little search bar, that kid's got moves, you're going to still be able to see that post. This is something that he's been attacked relentlessly on. I think it's something that he should have stepped down from his position in the state Senate after tweeting it. It's disgusting. I think it's awful. We also have another thing when we continue chatting that I ask him about his kind of love of X and why he's on it so much and why he blocked so many of his constituents, which Kai asked he would love to see a statistical analyst on how many of his constituents he's blocked on X, and we see from him say not that many. I'm sure many of the individuals that are going to be listening to the show are likely blocked by Nate Blouin and have the receipts and documents and proof to show it. Nate is a guy who's a liar. He's never had a real serious job. He's unemployed. He has no kids. The really only accomplishment that he's ever had is be elected and by radical lefties in the bluest district in all of Utah and receive maybe a Bernie Sanders endorsement for being the most outright socialist. This is a guy that we cannot allow Utah to be represented by. I just want to say that my encounter with Nate only lasted a few minutes. He's a wuss. He ran away shortly thereafter. We had an individual there that had a megaphone that was trying to disrupt our conversation, and Nate's a guy that really, in my eyes and probably many others, is just a coward. We don't need cowards representing us in Utah. We need strong men to stand up, to fight for this state, to fight for this country, and that's what college Republicans are all about. That's what I'm all about, and that's what I hope we get in the next cycle here. Once these maps are back and we can finally get some of the good guys back in, being some true conservatives. So I'm hopeful that we're able to accomplish that. I'm by no means giving an endorsement for Nate Blouin by my disdain for him, but Nate is a guy that Utah, if we want to have any sort of proper state or future, we need to not get him elected in office.
Yeah, I think anybody who's been following at least my account, I mean, I'm blocked by Nate Blouin, no surprise. I think he's had me blocked for like a year, though, so... but he blocked me for replying to one of his posts with the screenshot of that kid's got moves tweet. So clearly he's sensitive to it. I don't know why he hasn't taken it down, but even if he ever tries to, there's thousands of people that have taken screenshots and saved that. So that's... the internet lives forever. On that topic, so we will probably not know what the districts look like for Utah's congressional map until maybe mid-February, mid-March. I think that's the goal. They push back the filing deadline for the congressional races specifically so they can try to keep litigating this, the Utah Republican Party. So I imagine probably within the next month or so we will have a better idea of what the maps will look like. But November's not getting pushed back. We will have a midterm for all the statewide, all the state legislative races, state Senate, state House. There's lots of elections going on. Obviously, this congressional race is one of them. So we're going to just real quick, just pivot, talk about 2026, some of your thoughts, some of your predictions. Just real quick, what are your just overall thoughts on the state of the world right now? Like, you're still going through college, you're almost through, you're getting ready to graduate, and you'll be entering into this crazy world. What are your thoughts on really what's going on in, you got Minneapolis, you got Venezuela, you've got Iran. Just give me your, Riley Beesley 101. What's your thoughts on how the world's going right now?
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting time to be a guy that's watching what's going on around the world. What we did in Venezuela, I like to believe I'm an isolationist. If you're ever going to carry out something like we did in Venezuela, I think they did everything right. While I might disagree with it fundamentally, I believe that those men that were there are patriots, are heroes, and I'm glad that nobody lost their lives on our side, and I'm glad that we're able to topple a dictator in Venezuela. Speaking on Iran, I don't think that we have any need or role to be doing regime change on behalf of another country there. I would hope that we focus and prioritize Americans here, and maybe let's take a further look at diplomacy at capturing Greenland or acquiring Greenland. I think our efforts could be better spent there instead of Iran. Being an individual in college, I think I have a unique perspective. I'm also a Zoomer. I'm a person who's Gen Z. I think that if we're out here getting ourselves in situations that could lead to war, I think our priority needs to be the younger generation. I think our priority needs to be fixing the economy, making the economy better. Trump's done a great job of that already. We're one of the strongest economies in the world. Tariffs are working great. And one thing that we need to really prioritize now, though, is kicking out H-1B visas, getting them out of our country, and allowing opportunity to flow for Gen Z through employment. One of the things that we're seeing now is rates of Gen Z unemployment between 9 to 14%. My generation isn't able to get a job, and if I'm doing everything right, going to college, getting a degree, and as so many others are, and there's no future outlook for me or anyone else to receive a job, we're going into debt for nothing. We're doing everything that we're told to. We're making all the right choices with no future outlook, and I think that's something that's seriously wrong. And if Trump is able to prioritize that a little bit more, I would be very thankful of him for doing so. I think if the GOP wants to win the midterms this cycle, they need to pivot and not be prioritizing intervention in Iran and focus on American patriots, American citizens here, and the younger generation. Another thing that we're seeing is the first-time home buyer, the average age of them is 40 years old. If we're not able to have kids, or if we're not able to have a home, how do you expect my generation to ever have the opportunity to have children and raise a family and live out the American dream as so many prior generations have been able? We're not going to receive the American dream by toppling a regime change or an Islamic regime in Iran, right? How does that benefit me? How does that lower home prices in Utah? How does that make steak and eggs cheaper, right? Or even maybe a white monster as some drink. I don't. Another thing that we're seeing is $33,000 being the average student debt here in Utah. If Trump is saying that the institutions, if the universities can't live off or function without importing 600,000 Chinese students to come in here and prop up the universities financially, I think the universities, maybe we have too many in this country. Maybe we need to start downsizing the amount of universities that we have. Maybe we need to look at improving the curriculum, having curriculum that actually leads to jobs. That could be another reason why our unemployment is so high in Gen Z. So if these are issues that Trump can pivot to and really prioritize and make his emphasis for his administration going into midterms, I think that would greatly benefit the GOP, because if not, we're going to see radical Democrats get elected all over this country. They're going to file to impeach Trump endlessly, and this agenda is never going to be able to go through. I think recently we saw that this Congress has passed some of the lowest numbers of bills in centennials. So if we want to really put first the American people, if we want to advance the America First agenda, we're going to have to start passing good legislation and defeating bad legislation. We can't continue to spend endlessly on Democrat NGOs or nonprofits or USAID or foreign countries and just waste all of taxpayer money, because any dollar that's being sent to the government now is just being sent to a Somali daycare. These are things that we need to change, and if Trump isn't able to accomplish it, I don't really have faith that anybody is going to be able to. So first things first, we need to deliver the midterms to Trump, and he needs to put an America first emphasis on his policy, both foreign and domestic.
I mean, that's a great segue to kind of my next question. So, I mean, I think a lot of people are keeping their eyes on the midterms because, I mean, the House right now, it's only a 5-seat majority that the Republicans hold. The Senate has a bigger majority for the Republicans. That's a 6-seat majority, which is kind of crazy to think about, but it's razor thin in both. That probably plays into a massive reason why so little has been able to get done and so much has been kind of required to happen at the executive level. So what do you think is going to happen in November? Usually, historically, in a president's midterm, in the midterm election cycle, they usually are punished by the voters. The opposing side is usually pretty fired up to come out and oppose the presidential administration and his party. 2018, we saw that happen. It wasn't as much of a bloodbath as I think a lot of people thought it would be for the Democrats or for the Republicans. The Democrats still had a big swing, but it wasn't as massive as people were expecting. That might be the Trump effect or whatever. 2026, Democrats are extremely fired up. They're going to be fired up here in Utah, especially if they are able to secure that new CD1, and that'll play down ballot. That'll bleed into state Senate, state House races. So just what do you think? What's your forecast for November in just nationwide, here in Utah? What are your thoughts? What are you thinking about for 2026?
If we want to have any sort of America First agenda or policy implemented, we need to deliver Trump the midterms by delivering him Utah. We can't lose CD1 to Democrats. Everything's going to topple and fail if we lose that seat. We need to repeal Prop 4. We need to not elect Ben McAdams, a Nate Blouin, or Liban Mohammed. Looking more so in Utah in our legislature, I think we're going to be all right locally. The only really issues that we have are in Salt Lake Park City and in some pockets of southern Utah, down near Moab. I think we'll be all right there. We need to have Republicans not only show up every 4 years when it's a presidential cycle. We need to have better turnout when it is the midterms or maybe even your municipal elections for electing your mayor or your county clerk or whoever it might be. Republicans need to show up, and we need to vote, because that's something that the Democrats do incredibly well. They're able to excite their base for the littlest of things, and Republicans need to turn out. We need to show up, and we need to win this battle that we're here in Utah being Prop 4.
I think 2026 is going to be a big barometer. It'll be a big barometer on the appetite for 2028 that a lot of Republicans will have, because I think when Trump is on the ballot, he does a really good job at driving out people who wouldn't normally vote for Republicans or vote at all. We've kind of seen that. That's measurable. 2026, he's obviously not going to be on the ballot at all. And constitutionally, he's restricted to run in 2028. I know a lot of people are saying, we'll find a way to get it done. We'll find a way to get Trump on the ballot, or Trump will be third term or whatever. So without making, I guess, any endorsements or any official, this is who you want, but just give me, let's assume 2026 is over. What do you think is going to happen in 2028? Obviously, a lot of people want to see Trump run for a third term, however that's possible. Other people, they're pivoting to throwing their support behind J.D. Vance. A lot of rumors that Spencer Cox potentially is going to run for president. Gavin Newsom's obviously gearing up. That's the most obvious, curveball in the whole world that he's coming in. And then here in Utah, obviously, we're going to have a governor's race, and we're going to have a Senate race, Mike Lee's seat. So just give me your, not an endorsement of any type, but just your predictions of what you think is going to happen in 2028.
Yeah, first off, let's just hope that we can make it to 2028 with the forecast and outlook that we're looking at now. Who knows at this point? I'm not in the crowd that wants to see Trump run again in 2028. We've had our time with him. We need to continue the MAGA movement. And I say that I love President Trump. I stand by him. He's just getting up there in age. I don't think we could do another 7-ish years. I think it's going to be interesting when we look nationally to see who's going to be gearing up to run on the Republican ticket. I think you have individuals like Tucker Carlson who I view very positively that might be gearing up a presidential run. And then you have individuals who I might disagree with heavily, like Senator Ted Cruz. If we want to employ an American First agenda and continue the MAGA movement, I think we need to find individuals who have been ally supporters and are aligned with that movement. And when we have individuals who aren't, I think it would be good for the GOP to not look their way or swing them any support. We can't go back to the neocon, hawkish policy of a type like Nikki Haley or Ted Cruz or Lindsey Graham. That's not what my generation is fighting for. That's not what my generation is wanting. And we need somebody who's able to pick up the torch and carry it, whether it is J.D. Vance or somebody else that has been involved and been a supporter of this movement. When we look here locally, with an individual like our governor Spencer Cox, who might be running, who really knows how much support he might pick up. He's definitely, I'm not going to make an endorsement now. He's not the most beloved guy here locally in Utah, and I think if you're not able to even win in your own state, it's going to be a difficult time to win nationally. And I'm hopeful to see maybe a more Republican or conservative governor here in 2028 if it is that Spencer Cox isn't running. There's a lot of speculation on who might be running then. I'm not going to issue any endorsements now. But with who's gearing up, I think you're seeing individuals like Jason Chaffetz. Another name that's often floated around is Spencer Cox's Lieutenant Governor Deidre Henderson. You also have individuals like the Speaker of the House, Mike Schultz. And even if we look back in prior gubernatorial races, you have guys like Phil Lyman, Carson Jorgensen, and maybe even Greg Hughes, who might be willing to throw their name in the race again. You have individuals who are not as vocal about maybe their intention to run or in so their actions, but you have guys like maybe Case Lawrence or Brad Bonham, or maybe we explore guys like Trent Staggs, or really any of these guys who might be gearing up for it. As of right now, nobody's officially announced anything, so it's hard to tell what might be on the horizon. But these are all guys that I've speculated could, and I hope that the most conservative candidate wins, the most loving of Utah individual, and the man who won't be a sellout or corrupt.
Well, Riley, we've been going for a good bit. We've been going for like almost an hour and 15. So before we wrap up, I just want to ask you, I guess, two kind of final questions that are, same topic, different coin, same coin, different sides of the same coin. First, what are you most concerned about for Utah and America? And then I guess, what are you most optimistic about for Utah and America going forward?
I'll start off on a good note, saying what I'm most optimistic about, and we know that the legislative session starts January 20th, which is up here shortly, depending on when this video is released. We're going to see, I think, some really great policy have the opportunity to be voted on. I think it's devastating that we see here in Utah that you can have an elected abortion up to 16 weeks of pregnancy. I think that it is something that doesn't represent the values of Utah one bit. And I'm glad that we're going to be able to have a vote on that to see that not be the case any longer. That's something that I'm optimistic about. I'm hopeful that we're able to repeal Prop 4. I'm hopeful that we're not going to have individuals, progressive socialists, maybe even alleged Antifa, guys like Nate Blouin or others represent us, because they won't. I'm hopeful that the younger generation is able to step up. I'm hopeful that we're going to have a more conservative delegation of delegates that go through caucus to select who our representatives are in the Republican Party. I'm hopeful that the universities and institutions that many individuals in this state care deeply about don't continue down this woke radical path, and that we're able to return to common sense, both here in Utah and nationally. I'm hopeful that our leaders are able to have good health and embody the teachings of Christ in all their doings, and take with them the guidance of the gospel. Stuff that I'm worried about. I'm worried about the political violence that we're seeing across this country. I'm worried about the derangement syndrome that we're seeing, not only from TDS but from ICE, from the left. I'm hopeful that Democrat politicians are able to tone down the rhetoric, because it's often that they're telling us to tone down just as they are riling things up, and in some instances like Charlie Kirk shooting conservatives, or in other cases, as I witnessed last week, individuals pretend guns at me and threaten me. I'm hopeful that I don't ever have to experience those things again, just solely based off my political beliefs. I'm worried that Trump could lose the midterms. I'm worried about that. I'm hopeful that Republicans are able to deliver it to him. I'm hopeful that the economy is able to turn up, because if we're not able to really shift gears and prioritize and focus on the economy, that's going to be a big worry for us continuing to go past 2026 and beyond, and just simply in the everyday lives of everyday Americans, based on the increase in cost of living. I'm hopeful that we're able to lower that and advance an America First agenda across the board, both here in Utah and for the rest of the United States.
Well, Riley, thank you. Appreciate all the hard work you guys are doing. I know it's not easy. I know it's not always fun to put yourself out there the way that you have, but you are a patriot. All the work you're doing, I think you're doing the work that a lot of people appreciate. Any parting thoughts that you have for us as we head into convention season, caucus season, and convention season's coming up it's right around the corner. It's going to start really heating up in March, and then you got the convention, and then you got the primary. 2026, it's our obviously 250th anniversary of our great country. So I think 2026 is going to be an incredible year. I think there's going to be a lot more hardship potentially, but I think there's also going to be a lot of things that we can optimistically look at, especially the younger generations. So just parting thoughts, where can we find you on other social medias? What you got planned for this year?
Yeah, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to come on this podcast. It's been a great time. I want to leave with these closing remarks that America is worth fighting for. Utah is worth saving, but it takes all of us. At this point, we are at a turning point in our country. You need to get involved. You need to step up, and I'm going to issue you a call to action. March 17th, we have caucus night here in Utah. It's going to be you and all your neighbors are going to gather together to select a delegate to represent the Republican Party in your neighborhood and your county when we meet again at convention in April. Being a delegate allows you the opportunity to choose who our elected officials are before they're on the ballot. You're going to be able to decide who represents the Republican Party prior to a primary or a general, and this is going to be the most critical thing that you're able to do. If you want conservatives to represent you, you need to get up, you need to mark your calendar, March 17th, show up, run as a delegate, get involved, and fight for Utah, because we are at a point in time where if good, strong men don't step up, we're going to lose our state, because at this point, nobody is coming to save us. Some of the things that we have coming in our Utah College Republican plans are major events. We have major caucus night trainings and preparation that we're hopeful to have a large gathering of students come and pledge to run for caucus. So any support that we can have in that, you can visit our website and make a contribution at www.ufcr.gop. In the top right, there's a donate tab. Anything that you can contribute helps us recruit more young conservative students to get involved, to run as delegates, and to join the process that our constitutional republic enables. if you want to follow me on my mission, you can follow me on X at RILEYBEESLEY, Riley Beesley, or on Instagram at Riley C. Beesley, and follow any of our College Republican accounts on social media. Aside from that, I just want to reiterate the point that our organization is here to be the conservative voice on campus. We are to train, educate, and mobilize the youth in Utah and across this country. And if we fail to do so, the Democrats are well more organized than us, and they're going to be able to stomp us both in elections and in activation. If our mission fails, nobody is coming to save the GOP. Nobody is coming to save America. Nobody is coming to save Utah. If it's not for us to take a stand now, to step up and fight for this country, to fight for this state, and fight for the values and principles and morals that we hold dear, we are going to lose them, and we will lose them forever.
Well said. Well said, Riley. Thank you again for taking the time. Thank you for all the hard work you're doing, and we'll have to do this again sometime. So appreciate everybody who tuned in. Follow Riley on all social medias. He dropped all his handles, so I'll be putting this on YouTube and Twitter, maybe Rumble as well. And yeah, talk to you another time.